The town slept under a silver-tinged sky, the wind whispering through narrow alleyways, stirring the leaves like faint applause for a performance unseen. She moved through the streets with the grace of someone accustomed to vanishing, feet light, breath measured, eyes alert. Every shadow was a potential hiding place, every passerby a possible threat. To anyone who looked, she was nothing more than a quiet, unremarkable girl in a worn coat, hair hiding her face like a veil. But beneath her careful human guise, a pulse of wild energy throbbed, her wolf sharp and aware, restless under the skin she had chosen for survival. Her fingers brushed the worn strap of her satchel, tightening instinctively. A soft noise, a cat skittering into the alley made her heart skip. She shook it off. Paranoia was dangerous, hiding was survival. She had been doing it for years. Every instinct screamed that being noticed could be fatal. And yet, she sensed it again, the subtle, insistent weight of eyes on her, the faint hum of someone, or something, watching from just beyond the edge of perception. "You're careful," a voice said, low and controlled, as though testing her boundaries. She froze, heart hammering. Her pulse did not betray her wolf, but her grip on the satchel tightened anyway. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline prickling her skin. From the shadows, a man stepped forward, tall, broad, with a presence that seemed to fill the empty street. His eyes, sharp and unnervingly direct, locked onto hers. The energy radiating from him was different, predatory, yet commanding, as though he could read the unspoken truths lurking beneath the surface. "You hide," he said, almost a statement, almost a question. His gaze lingered, unnerving in its intensity. She did not flinch, though her mind raced. How much could he see? How much did he know? I keep to myself, she said, voice a whisper now, more to convince herself than him. He tilted his head, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his lips, as if he enjoyed the game. But she knew better. She had seen that look before. Wolves recognized wolves, and he was one. Her heart clenched. The wind stirred, carrying a hint of danger, a promise that her carefully built world was about to collide with something she could neither predict nor control. She ducked into the nearest alley, shadows swallowing her form, but she knew the eyes followed, always following, and somewhere deep in the darkness her wolf stirred, alert, sensing the storm that had just arrived in her life. The next morning brought no relief. The wind carried a sharp bite that made the town feel smaller, claustrophobic. She moved through the streets as usual, every sense alert, but something had shifted. A presence lingered, he lingered. She could feel it even before she saw him, the kind of presence that dominated a space without trying, that made people instinctively step back. And then she saw him. He stood near the fountain in the town square, leaning casually against the stone, yet every line of his body radiated authority. The sun glinted off dark hair, highlighting a jawline carved like it had been shaped for command. His eyes, piercing, unyielding, scanned the crowd until they found hers. Her breath hitched. That same sense of being hunted, being known, gnawed at her chest. "You're careful," he said, his voice low but cutting through the morning chatter like a knife. "But you can't hide everything." She froze mid-step, fists clenching at her sides. His voice, confident, smooth, and slightly dangerous, was a siren call she wanted to ignore but couldn't. She took a cautious step back. I don't know what you mean," she said, though her words sounded fragile even to her ears. He tilted his head slightly, eyes narrowing, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. "I think you do, and I think you know exactly who I am." Her heart stuttered. The Alpha, a name whispered in stories, in warnings, in fears. He was everything her instincts screamed she should avoid. Yet the pull, undeniable and electric, surged through her veins, a dangerous thrill she couldn't suppress. She shook her head, forcing herself to focus. "I'm not what you think," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Are you sure?" His gaze burned into her, and for a moment she felt stripped bare, exposed in ways she had meticulously avoided for years. "Because hiding from me isn't going to work forever." The tension twisted in her chest. She wanted to run, wanted to disappear, wanted to vanish into the shadows where he couldn't reach her. But some part of her, something wild, unspoken, wanted to stay, wanted to see just how far he could see into her. He stepped closer, just enough to remind her of his dominance, yet not enough to close the gap completely. "Watch yourself," he murmured, almost teasing, almost a warning. "I notice everything, and I never forget." A shiver ran down her spine. The streets of her quiet town suddenly felt too small, too exposed, and she realized that her carefully hidden life was now in jeopardy. He was here, and somehow, impossibly, he already knew. The wind stirred again, carrying a scent she couldn't name but recognized as power. Her wolf stirred beneath the surface, restless, eager, aware that the game had changed. The days that followed were a delicate dance of avoidance and watchfulness. She moved through the town with practiced ease, yet every corner seemed to whisper his presence. Every shadow seemed to hold his gaze. Even the simplest errands, buying bread, returning library books, felt like navigating a labyrinth of invisible eyes. Her wolf stirred constantly beneath her skin, restless and tense, sensing a predator that was not only real but dangerously attuned to her every heartbeat. Rumors had begun to circulate, soft, almost imperceptible, but enough to unsettle her. Whispers of a girl who moved strangely, who lingered too long in the woods, who disappeared when the moon rose. Humans were curious, but wolves were meticulous, and she knew someone was connecting dots that shouldn't be connected. She ducked into an alley, heart hammering, hands pressed to her chest. Her chest burned, not with fear alone, but with the echo of the alpha's gaze, the memory of his eyes piercing through her carefully constructed facade. She wasn't safe, and now she wasn't just hiding from humans. A figure stepped into the alley, tall, lean, eyes sharp with intent. It wasn't him. Relief and dread collided. "You shouldn't be wandering here." A voice hissed. It was familiar, too familiar. Another wolf, one from a rival pack who had arrived under the guise of neutrality. "I'm not here to cause trouble," she said, forcing her voice calm, though her pulse raced. "Yet trouble follows you," he replied, a smirk twisting his features. "Do you think your little secret will remain hidden forever?" Her breath caught. He knew, or at least suspected. Her pulse quickened, and for a fleeting moment, she imagined shedding her human guise entirely, letting the wolf within roar free. But fear clipped her wings. She had no choice but to retreat, to vanish into the shadows that had always protected her. From somewhere above, a crow cawed, sharp and piercing, and she sensed him before she saw him. The alpha. Perched on the edge of a rooftop, silent and composed, his gaze locked onto her, unwavering. His presence was both a promise and a threat, a tether she couldn't ignore. He was watching, and she knew he saw more than she wanted him to. Her fingers tightened around her bag strap, knuckles white. She had never felt so vulnerable, so exposed. Her wolf stirred in warning, a low growl vibrating in her chest. The air itself seemed to thrum with tension, as though the town itself held its breath. "You're in danger," the alpha said quietly, his voice carrying just enough to reach her ears without alerting the rival wolf. "And you're not alone." For a heartbeat, hope flickered. Then she remembered the precarious edge she balanced on. Being seen, being noticed meant risk, and yet some part of her, the reckless, defiant part, wanted to step forward to see if he truly could protect her, if he truly could understand the chaos she hid beneath the quiet exterior. The rival wolf's smirk widened as he finally turned away, leaving her alone with the alpha's unseen gaze. She exhaled slowly, realizing that survival was no longer just about secrecy. It was about trust, danger, and the undeniable pull of something, or someone, she could no longer ignore. The full moon rose high over the clearing, silver light spilling across the forest like liquid fire. Shadows stretched long and deep, and the night carried a charge that made the hair on her arms stand on end. She moved cautiously, the soft rustle of leaves beneath her boots the only sound, though she knew she was not alone. The air thrummed with energy, wild, magnetic, impossible to ignore. He was there, as inevitable as the moon itself. The alpha stood at the edge of the clearing, shoulders relaxed but tension radiating from every muscle. His eyes, dark and piercing, followed her movements, unblinking. She felt it immediately, the pull between them, a dangerous, forbidden force that made her breath catch and her wolf stir beneath the surface. "Why do you linger in the shadows?" His voice, low and measured, cut through the stillness. There was curiosity there, and something darker, something that made her pulse spike. I like the quiet," she said, forcing her tone casual, though every word trembled with unsaid truths. "Quiet doesn't protect you." He took a step closer, and the scent of him reached her before his footfall did. Earthy, dominant, intoxicating. Her wolf recognized it instantly, heart pounding with the thrill of challenge and recognition. She took an instinctive step back, but it was half-hearted. Part of her wanted to close the distance, to see if he could feel the fire simmering beneath her calm exterior. The clearing seemed to shrink around them, the moonlight framing him like a predator and a promise all at once. Without thinking, her hand brushed against his as she tried to step past him. The contact was electric, tiny sparks crawling up her arm, igniting a heat she had fought to contain for years. "You feel it too," he said softly, eyes narrowing, almost a question, almost a statement. "Don't fight it." Her pulse thudded in her ears. I have to," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "If I don't, everything could fall apart." He leaned slightly closer, gaze burning into hers, unyielding. "Some things aren't meant to be hidden forever. You can fight it, or you can let it be." Her chest tightened, every instinct screaming at her to flee, to vanish, to retreat into shadows where safety waited. Yet another part, the part she barely admitted to herself, longed for him, for the forbidden brush of touch, for the dangerous closeness that made her blood sing. A sudden snap of a twig in the distance pulled her attention away, breaking the moment. The spell shattered, leaving a hollow ache in its wake. She retreated into the darkness, her heartbeat loud in the silent forest, aware that something fundamental had shifted between them. He watched her go, unwavering, and she knew deep down that this was only the beginning. The moon climbed higher, indifferent, as her wolf whispered in warning, and in anticipation. The forest seemed quieter than usual, the kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes every rustle of leaves deafening. She moved cautiously, aware that tonight the moon hung higher, sharper, exposing every shadow, every hiding place. Her senses were taut, every instinct screaming that she was not alone, and she was right. A sudden crack of a branch behind her made her spin. There, emerging from the shadows, stood another wolf, not human yet not entirely wolf, a creature of lethal grace and smoldering menace. His gaze locked onto hers immediately, sharp and calculating. "So this is the little secret," he said, voice smooth, dangerous, the one everyone's been whispering about. She swallowed hard, hands tightening at her sides. Her wolf growled low in warning, a vibration that traveled deep in her chest. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, keeping her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her stomach. "Oh, don't play coy with me," he replied, stepping closer. His presence was heavy, threatening, and somehow intoxicating all at once. "I've been tracking you. I know you're kind." Her breath hitched. She had been careful, years of careful hiding, but somehow he had found her. Her pulse raced, mixing fear with adrenaline, a cocktail that set her wolf alive beneath her skin. She backed away slowly, looking for escape, any shadow to hide in, but the forest seemed to shrink with every step. "You can't run forever," he murmured, and she flinched. His words were not just a threat. They were a promise. Before panic could fully take hold, a familiar presence cut through the tension like a blade. The alpha stepped into the clearing, shoulders squared, eyes dark with fury. The rival's gaze flickered to him, hesitation flashing briefly across his features. "I see she's under your protection," the rival said, masking irritation with forced politeness. The alpha's voice was calm but deadly. "She doesn't need lessons from you," he said, taking a single step forward. Every movement was controlled, a predator asserting dominance without shouting. The tension between the two males crackled, palpable like lightning about to strike. She felt her wolf stir, senses flaring at the danger surrounding her. The alpha's eyes, however, were not on the rival entirely. They flicked to her, softening, holding a warning, a promise, and something else she didn't dare name. Protection, desire, Obsession, you see, the rival sneered. I could have had her, you know. She's mine to claim if... He stopped, realizing the alpha stare could shred his bravado in an instant. Her chest burned, both with the thrill of survival and the undeniable tension between them. She had fought so hard to hide her power, her identity, her heart, and yet here they were, two predators circling, both claiming something she hadn't yet given. The alpha stepped closer to her instinctively, his presence a shield, and her wolf exhaled in quiet relief. But the rival wasn't finished. He lingered, eyes flicking between them, a promise that this wasn't the last encounter. Danger, she realized with a sinking feeling, wasn't just outside. It had followed her into her life and into her heart. And the pull of forbidden desire, tangled with fear and thrill, made her pulse ache like a drum in the silent forest. The forest breathed under the silver glow of the full moon, each leaf shimmering as if dusted with starlight. She moved silently along the narrow path, heart hammering, wolf senses alert to every sound, every shadow. Somewhere deep in the darkness, she knew he waited, the alpha. And though every rational thought screamed caution, every pulse in her body whispered a different truth. He emerged from the shadows without a sound, his presence magnetic, unavoidable. The moonlight caught the edges of his form, outlining strength and danger in perfect balance. You shouldn't be out here alone, he murmured, voice low, carrying both command and warmth that made her knees weak. I like the night, she said softly, though her eyes betrayed her. The shadows had always been her refuge, and yet, standing before him, she felt exposed in ways she had never allowed herself. Night has a way of revealing secrets, he said, stepping closer, the space between them crackling with tension, and some secrets are dangerous to keep. Her wolf growled softly, a vibration of unease and excitement mingled together. She resisted the urge to close the distance, to reach out, to let the pull between them take her. Every instinct screamed that succumbing could change everything, but his gaze, dark and commanding, held her captive, promising more than mere protection, promising fire, passion, and danger all at once. She swallowed, voice trembling. I can't, not yet. There are things you don't understand. Then let me understand, he whispered, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him, his scent wrapping around her senses like a tether she couldn't break. Let me see the wolf you hide. Let me see you. Her chest tightened, torn between fear and desire. She had spent years concealing her true self, shielding her heart and her power, and yet here he was, undeterred, demanding honesty, drawing her closer with the intensity of a predator and the tenderness of someone who might care. For a moment the world narrowed to the two of them, breath, heartbeat, the unspoken tension vibrating through the cool night air. She dared a step closer, and he mirrored her movement, shrinking the distance with deliberate care. Their hands brushed, lightly at first, then a heartbeat longer, and the spark that ignited made her pulse race and her wolf stir in primal recognition. Dangerous, she breathed, a warning and a confession. Nothing worth having is ever safe, he murmured, lips just inches from hers. A sudden rustle in the trees reminded them that the world beyond their forbidden bubble still existed. She drew back reluctantly, heart pounding, wolf growling softly beneath the surface. He stayed unwavering, eyes dark with intensity and unspoken promise. The night stretched on, full of tension, desire, and the quiet danger that had become their shared companion. Every secret glance, every fleeting touch made it clear. Boundaries were being tested, rules were being broken, and the pull between them was stronger than either could resist. And somewhere deep in the forest, her wolf whispered in anticipation. This was only the beginning. The moon hung high and cold over the forest, silver light spilling across the clearing and glinting off the dew-soaked grass. She moved cautiously, every sense alert, the wolf inside her restless and tense. Something in the air had shifted. Subtle, almost imperceptible, yet her instincts screamed that danger was closer than she realized. A sound, barely more than a whisper, snapped her attention to the shadows. Her heart leapt, not with excitement, but with foreboding. She had learned to trust her instincts, and tonight they were screaming warnings she could not ignore. You shouldn't have come here alone, a voice called softly from behind. Relief and fear collided. She expected him, the Alpha, his presence a tether of protection. But instead it was someone else, someone she had trusted. Why? Why are you here? She asked, unease threading through her words. I'm helping, he said, his tone smooth, almost sincere. You don't understand the dangers lurking nearby. You need guidance, someone to watch your back. Her wolf growled low, a vibration of distrust. I can handle myself, she snapped, eyes narrowing, but something in his steady gaze, in the way he moved with precise calculation, made her hesitate. Before she could react, the shadows shifted, and the rival pack emerged, silent and deadly. The trusted ally she had leaned on for support stepped back, or rather, stepped aside. His betrayal cut sharper than any blade. He had led them here. Her chest tightened, rage and heartbreak mingling into a suffocating weight. You, she breathed, voice trembling with fury. You, they were always going to find you, he said casually, almost apologetic, as if her life had been a mere pawn in his game. Better you face them now than later. Her wolf surged, feral and raw, and she felt her muscles tense for a fight she hadn't fully prepared for. Her eyes darted toward the forest edge where shadows moved with lethal grace, waiting for the moment to strike. From above, the Alpha appeared, his presence slicing through the tension like a blade. His gaze locked on her, then on the rival pack, then on the traitor. His voice, calm and deadly, carried over the clearing. Step back, he commanded, the single word carrying the weight of authority, power, and unyielding determination. Her heart leapt at the sight of him, at the assurance that she was not alone. Yet the betrayal stung deeper than fear. Trust, she realized, was fragile, easily broken, painfully sharp when shattered. The rival pack hesitated, sensing the Alpha's dominance, and she, standing in the moonlight, felt a spark of defiance ignite. Her wolf surged within her, primal and ready, a force she had long restrained. She would fight, she would survive, and she would make them all understand that hiding would no longer define her life. The forest held its breath as tension crackled like lightning. She glanced at the Alpha, whose eyes held a mixture of warning, protectiveness, and something unspoken. A bond forming under the pressure of imminent danger. And in that moment, as betrayal and desire intertwined, she understood one terrible, exhilarating truth. Her life and her heart had changed forever. The night was thick with tension, the forest air electric with the residue of the betrayal that still burned in her chest. She moved cautiously along the familiar path, senses taut, wolf coiled beneath her skin, every muscle ready. The moon illuminated the clearing ahead, pale and watchful, and she knew he was their Alpha, unwavering, silent, a shadow among shadows, waiting. You know why I'm here, he said, voice low, controlled, carrying the weight of authority and expectation. She could feel it pressing against her, a force impossible to ignore. Every instinct, every fiber of her being, screamed both warning and desire. I can't, she whispered, voice trembling. She refused to meet his gaze, knowing that if she did, her carefully maintained defenses would crumble. If I shift, if you see me, everything changes. I can't risk it. His eyes darkened, sharp and piercing, holding her in place. Everything changes whether you like it or not, he said, and hiding will no longer protect you, not from me, not from them, not from yourself. She swallowed, chest tight, feeling the wolf surge in frustration, in longing, in instinctive acknowledgement of his dominance. You don't understand, she said, trembling. I've hidden for years. I've survived by being invisible, and yet... He murmured, stepping closer, the magnetic pull between them impossible to resist. You've already been seen. You've already been hunted, and I've already noticed. You can keep hiding, or you can stand and face me. Face what you are. Her mind raced. To reveal herself, to submit even partially, was to surrender the fragile control she had fought for all her life. But denying him, denying the bond that prickled like fire beneath her skin, might destroy more than she could bear. You have a choice, he said, voice softer now, a dangerous gentleness threading through the steel. Shift or leave, step into your truth, or vanish from my pack, and from my life. Decide, because time has run out. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She could feel his presence surrounding her, protective yet demanding, a tether pulling her into something she wasn't sure she was ready to face. Desire and fear collided, each vying for control over her heart. She closed her eyes, wolf stirring, instinct screaming, and took a shuddering breath. Every instinct told her to flee, every heartbeat told her to stay. The forest seemed to lean in, holding its breath, the world waiting for her choice. When she opened her eyes, she met his gaze, dark and unwavering. The tension between them was palpable, the silence nearly unbearable. She wanted to speak, to explain, to plead, but no words could capture the storm raging inside her. The Alpha's ultimatum hung in the air, sharp and uncompromising, leaving her with one impossible truth. Survival had always been her way, but love, power, and destiny were demanding she choose differently. Somewhere deep inside, her wolf growled, impatient and restless, sensing that her moment of reckoning had arrived, and she knew, with a clarity that sent shivers down her spine, that nothing would ever be the same again. The forest was alive with tension, the moon spilling silver light across the clearing, illuminating every leaf, every ripple of movement. She stood frozen, heart hammering, wolf coiled beneath her skin like a caged storm. The Alpha's presence was all-consuming, an invisible chain pulling at her, daring her to surrender, to step beyond the line she had drawn for herself for so many years. "You can't keep running," he said, voice low, steady, impossible to resist. His eyes bore into hers, unyielding, commanding, yet threaded with something gentler, something dangerous in its intensity. "Show me who you are. Trust me." She shook her head, fear and desire warring within her. I can't if I do. If you see me fully, everything changes. I don't know if I can, then trust me enough to try." He interrupted, stepping closer. The air between them seemed to ignite, charged with the pull of predator and mate, wolf and alpha. She could feel the pull of him deep in her chest, tugging at her heart, at her instincts, at the part of herself she had hidden even from herself. Her wolf growled, a low, urgent vibration that surged through her body. The danger, the desire, the need, it all collided into one electric moment, and she realized she could no longer deny herself. The forest seemed to hold its breath, the trees watching, the wind still. She exhaled, trembling, and let herself fall into the pull. The transformation was immediate, primal, a surge of power and freedom that made her gasp. Fur bristled across her skin, muscles shifting, senses heightening. She was alive in a way she had never allowed herself to be, every nerve ending singing with wild energy. The Alpha's gaze softened, then sharpened, and he stepped forward, closing the distance without overwhelming her. "You see," he murmured, "this is who you are, strong, fearless, and mine." Her eyes, now glowing faintly in the moonlight, met his, and in that moment recognition passed between them. Mate, predator, protector, and equal. She had hidden herself for survival, but in revealing her true form, she found something far greater: trust, acceptance, and connection. The rival pack, sensing the shift, hesitated, uncertainty flickering across their faces. Power radiated from her now, undeniable, fierce, and she realized she was no longer just hiding. She was claiming her space, her identity, her life. The Alpha's hand brushed hers, a grounding touch that tethered her amidst the rush of change. "We face everything together," he said, voice both promise and warning. "No one will threaten you while I stand." Her wolf exhaled in agreement, chest rising and falling, a symphony of readiness and relief. She had shifted under pressure, revealed her power, and in doing so, solidified a bond that neither time nor danger could break. The forest seemed to exhale with her, the moonlight bathing them in silver, a silent witness to the unbreakable bond now formed. This night marked the beginning of something irrevocable, a union of strength, desire, and destiny. The forest erupted in chaos as shadows moved like living predators, rival pack members emerging with lethal precision. The moonlight reflected off their eyes, cold and merciless. She stood beside the Alpha, heart pounding, wolf coiled and ready, muscles tense for the fight she had trained to survive. Fear and adrenaline merged into a raw, exhilarating clarity. This was no longer about hiding. It was about defending everything she had fought for. Stay close. The alpha growled, voice commanding yet reassuring. His presence was a tether she clung to, grounding her as danger closed in from all sides. She nodded, instincts sharpening, senses flaring. Every movement, every rustle of leaves, every distant snap of a branch was amplified, and she responded with the precision of someone who knew how to survive, how to fight. The first attackers lunged from the shadows, and she shifted seamlessly, letting the wolf within take control. Fur bristled, claws extended, and she moved with lethal grace. Each strike calculated yet instinctual. Her breath came in sharp bursts, heart thrumming with a mix of fear, adrenaline, and exhilaration. The alpha moved beside her, a dark, dominant force, his own claws tearing through threats with unrelenting precision. A rival lunged at her from the side, teeth bared. She pivoted, slashing with a swipe of her claws, and felt the rush of victory as he stumbled backward. Her wolf roared inside her, powerful and wild, reveling in the freedom of the fight. But the danger was far from over. Another figure emerged from the shadows, faster, deadlier, forcing her to stay on edge. Amidst the chaos, she caught glimpses of him, the alpha, moving with an almost supernatural efficiency. Every motion was confident, dominant, and protective, and her heart clenched at the thought of how deeply she had come to rely on him, how irrevocably he had become a part of her. "Watch your flank," he barked, a growl threading through his words. She pivoted just in time to intercept a rival, their teeth snapping inches from her shoulder. The wolf surged within her, instincts taking over, and she struck with deadly precision. The battle raged, a blur of motion, claws, teeth, and howls that echoed through the forest. They moved as one, a synchronized force of strength and trust. Every glance, every subtle signal deepened the bond forming between them. They were no longer just two wolves fighting side by side. They were mates, united by desire, danger, and destiny. When the last rival fell, silence descended like a heavy cloak, broken only by ragged breaths and the distant rustle of leaves. She lowered herself to the ground, wolf form still trembling with adrenaline. The alpha approached, eyes dark and unreadable, then softened as he reached out to her. "You fought well," he murmured, voice carrying both pride and something more intimate, desire, possessiveness, and protection. "Together, nothing can touch us." Her heart thumped, still racing from battle and from the pull of him beside her. For the first time she felt whole, strong, seen, and utterly bonded to him. The forest seemed to sigh, moonlight bathing them in silver, witnesses to the fight, the triumph, and the unbreakable connection now sealed between them. In that moment, danger faded, leaving only the promise of love, power, and the knowledge that they would face everything, together. The forest was calm now, the battle behind them nothing more than a memory carried away by the wind. Moonlight spilled across the clearing, silver and gentle, painting the world in serenity after the chaos. She moved beside the alpha, wolf form slowly melting back into her human self, heart still pounding from the fight, and from the intensity of being fully seen, fully known. He watched her closely, eyes dark, unwavering, yet softening with something that made her breath hitch. There was no pretense here, no hidden agendas, just trust, just the bond they had forged through danger, desire, and survival. His presence was a shield, a tether, a promise that she no longer needed to hide. "You're mine," he said quietly, voice low and absolute, the words carrying both possessiveness and reverence. She felt the pull of them deep in her chest, wolf and heart responding as one. She stepped closer, courage flaring, letting the vulnerability she had spent years concealing finally show. "And you're mine," she whispered, voice trembling, yet steady. Her fingers brushed against his, the contact simple but electric, sealing what words could not fully capture. The moonlight seemed to hold them in a private sphere, the rest of the world falling away. The forest exhaled around them, the rustle of leaves like applause for the union that had been forged in fire, danger, and desire. Every tension, every battle, every secret had led to this, complete, undeniable acceptance. His hand cupped her cheek, thumb brushing along her jaw, and her wolf stirred in agreement, chest rising and falling in tandem with her own. No more hiding, he murmured, eyes dark with intensity. "No more running. You are who you are, and I will stand with you, always." She leaned into him, closing the distance fully for the first time without fear. Her wolf exhaled, a low, satisfied sound that mingled with her own quiet laugh, relief, and joy. The alpha's arms wrapped around her, a perfect, unyielding embrace, and for the first time in years, she felt wholly safe. The moon rose higher, casting a silver glow over them, witnesses to a love forged in adversity and sealed under the light that had guided them through danger. In the stillness of the forest, their bond shimmered, unbroken and unbreakable, a promise that no shadow, no rival, no fear could sever. For the first time, she allowed herself to believe in a future without secrets, without fear, fully bound to him and to the wolf within. The world could wait, for now there was only them, moonlight, and the quiet, powerful heartbeat of two mates finally united.